A warm Monday morning, a bit of a dreek Monday morning welcome to everybody. I'm Lynn Houmdi. I am the co-creator of Making Work Work and also the founder of Flexible Working Scotland. And this session is about finding flexible employers. It's part of a series. We've been doing them on Monday mornings for the past few weeks, and it's a collaboration between Making Work Work and Flexible Working Scotland, mainly because we wanted to reach a wider audience. And I'm really pleased today to say we have Alice Campbell, who is a Making Work Work alumna and is now working at the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, and I believe has had a promotion since you've been there. And we have Andrew Senyu, who is, let me get this right, running the Home Instead franchise in the whole of Edinburgh, Andrew? Yeah, in the whole of Edinburgh. So not just Edinburgh East, which is where all of us are based. But I will let them introduce themselves more fully shortly. I'm going to share a few slides just to give a bit of context about where to find flexible work. And then I will hand over to Alice and then to Andrew. And each of them will speak for about 10 or 12 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions. I will just kick off. So I've introduced you to our panel. Just before we go any further, I think it's useful to define flexible working. So my own definition is that any deviation in terms of the time or location from the so-called norm, although I think that's becoming less normal, of a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job in the location set by the employer. And of course, it's worth pointing out that in some sectors, flexibility is difficult, but having a say, sorry, that's a shift, not shift, having a say in shift patterns and rotas helps staff manage their work-life blend. And that's what this is all about. It's about helping people to manage all of what's going on in their lives so that they can offer their best work to their employer. And that means not being stressed, not being worried about what's going on at home or what's going on elsewhere in your life, so that you can really focus on your work and do your best. And I think the benefits to employees of flexible working are pretty clear. All of you listening in today will have your own reasons for wanting or needing flexible work. Research suggests that at least 2 in 5 workers in Scotland need flexible working in order to be able to work at all. But what's not perhaps so well known is that there are many benefits to employers of flexible working. For example, if staff feel valued, that helps build trust and increased job satisfaction, which will mean that staff are more committed and productive. Research has found that employers felt that flexible working had improved employee productivity and thought that the economy was better off for it. A healthy work-life balance means that workers are less stressed, they're less likely to burn out, and fewer sick days are better for employers and lead also to greater retention. You know, if work is stressful, then people are less likely to stay. Flexible working can give employers a flexibility to deploy resources where they need them. That might mean in terms of hours in the day, days in the week, or seasons in the year. Flexible working enables employers to employ a wider diversity of people who need a wider diversity of working patterns. And McKinsey have found that diverse leadership teams in particular improves diversity of thought, which improves profitability and impact. Remote working or hybrid working particularly enables employers to attract talent from a wider geographical pool, but flexible working generally might enable them to recruit from a wider talent pool. And it also contributes to employer brand. There are some people who just won't apply for a job unless it's flexible. And some research by TimeWise found in 2022 that 93% of unemployed people wanted some degree of flexibility. And that doesn't necessarily mean working from a laptop on a beach in Bali. It might just mean that they need to leave half an hour earlier or start half an hour later. There's recent research has shown that flexible working helps attract, retain, and progress female workers because the burden of care typically falls on women, whether that's caring for children or adult relatives. Without flexibility, those women can't get into work and can't stay and progress. And there are, of course, environmental benefits and cost efficiency of remote and hybrid working for employers because they don't need as much space in, for example, offices. So, as a job seeker, how do you know if an employer offers flexible working? Well, hopefully it will say in the job ad. You might see this symbol at the bottom. It might not, though. So you could check the employer's website, see if they mention flexible working. You could see if they've won any awards for flexible working or equality, diversity, and inclusion. Often the two things go hand in hand. And I would say any company or employer that's shouting about equality, diversity, and inclusion, but doesn't work flexibly is talking nonsense. You could give them a call or send them an email. There's probably somebody's contact details on a job ad. So just phone them up and say, I'm really interested in this job. Can you tell me, do people work flexibly in your organisation? You could do some research on third-party sites like LinkedIn, Glassdoor or Fishbowl, which is similar to Glassdoor. You might see whether people have mentioned flexible working. You could find somebody in your network or in your network of those people you're networked to who works there and ask them. If you're on LinkedIn, have a look and see if anybody who works at that organisation is a second connection, which means you have a connection in between. You could ask them to introduce you. Or you could apply, and if you get asked for an interview, you could line up a question for the end of the interview. You know that often in an interview you'll be asked, do you have any questions? And you don't have to give anything away at that point if you're not ready. You know, you might not say, I want to work on Tuesdays and every other Thursday and on a Friday when there's a Y in the month. You might just say, I'm interested to know whether you offer flexible working and what types. And let them do the talking. And then if you get offered a job, that's when you might negotiate the pattern that works for you. So things are changing. Especially on the back of the pandemic, but also I think because employers realise that in order to attract the staff they need to be able to offer them conditions that enable them to do their best. And so on the 6th of April, so just in a couple of weeks now, new rules will come into force around flexible working. So this is legislation that has passed through the UK Parliament, which is responsible for employment legislation for the whole of the UK, including Scotland. So flexible working will be available from the first day of employment. Previously, you couldn't submit a formal flexible working request until you'd been employed for 26 weeks. That obviously skewed the whole process towards women coming back from maternity leave and made it impossible to start a job for a lot of women, particularly for mums, if they needed one set of childcare for 26 weeks in the hope that they didn't need that kind of childcare after 26 weeks. And it just wasn't working for the range of people who want flexible working, which isn't just mums. Now, if you need to submit a formal flexible working request, and a lot of employers don't require this, a lot of employers will enable you to just make an arrangement with your line manager, or if you're negotiating a contract, it'll be written into the contract and you don't need to submit a formal flexible working request. But if you work for an organisation that does follow the kind of letter of the law, you'll be able to submit 2 requests per year. And this helps particularly parents, but you know, life events happen all the time. But you could, for example, have a standard working pattern and then change it. For example, if something happens, or if you can't manage the school holidays, or you know, whatever happens in life, you could submit another request. It's no longer the onus is will no longer be on staff to explain the effect of the flexible working request on the business. It will be up to the business to figure that out. Nonetheless, I think your chances of success are better if you can present a business case. So if you can show that you've done some research, if you want to reduce your days and you can demonstrate that there's a colleague who could pick that up, or somebody could be recruited to pick that up, it's going to make your request easier to accept, I would imagine. Employers now will need to consult with the requester before they make a decision, particularly if that decision is likely to be no. So you have an opportunity to discuss it and to figure out a way to make it work. Employers need to respond more quickly, so they need to respond in 2 months instead of 3. That still means that you can't have a life event such as a divorce or a bereavement and make a request and expect it to be actioned next week. Hopefully you will be working for an employer who can accommodate that. And but if you are looking ahead, bear in mind that they will need to respond now in 2 months, not 3. But overall, it's going to take a while for this to bed in. Some employers are ahead of the curve, and they will have put structures in place already, particularly those, I would imagine, with larger HR departments, but smaller employers are still getting to grips with this. If you are employed and you feel your employer needs a bit of help, there's guidance on the ACAS website, and there's also an organisation in Scotland called Flexibility Works, whose research I've already cited, and they are in a position to support employers to get their heads around this, and they're actually running a series of events now in collaboration with lawyers to really help people understand what this all means. And what I'm seeing now is that there's flexibility in every sector. So here are some examples of employers from different sectors. So SCVO, that's the Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations, that's in the charitable sector. The WISE Group are a social enterprise, so also in the third sector. SSE, massive energy company in the private sector, and the Scottish Government in the public sector. So there are examples of flexible working everywhere. And this is a list of award-winning flexible employers. So the Flexibility Works Awards from 2022. Flexibility Works are no longer running those awards because they now sponsor the Best Flexible Working category in the Herald's Top Employer Awards. So as you can see, again, examples from every sector there. So whatever you're looking for, with a bit of research and a bit of patience and a bit of digging, you should be able to find an employer that will support you to really thrive. Because if you need flexible working and you don't get it, you are not going to thrive with that employer. And in terms of where to find flexible work roles, I'm sure our speakers today will talk about where they advertise. But if you're not already, please join Flexible Working Scotland on Facebook. Roles are regularly posted there. And I've also compiled an ebook of job sites that are relevant to job seekers in Scotland, which you can download from Ko-fi. I'm going to stop sharing. And I will hand over to Alice, who's going to go first. Over to you.
Okay. Does that look like?
We can see that. Yeah, brilliant.
People can see. Okay, perfect. Right. So, hi everybody. I wanted to, just come on and have like a bit of a chat about what the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh is kind of doing for flexible working. So, my name's Alice Campbell, and I'm currently a People and OD partner, assistant People and OD partner at the Royal Botanic Garden. So I did the Making Work course in 2020. I had been made redundant from my retail role in 2020 and took some time out to grow my family, and then felt like I needed to get back to work, and Making Work popped up on somewhere, and I was just like, this is what I need in life. Like, this is what I want. And so it was during that I kind of felt like perhaps a career in HR might be what I should have done many, many years ago. When I went to uni at 17, I didn't know what HR was. And so when I sort of started to explore it a little, but I thought, oh, like all those years ago when I went to do business studies and psychology, that's really the fundamentals of the job that I'm doing now. And so that my transferable skills actually were really strong to move me into that area. So as part of the Making Work Work programme, we were able to connect with a business in the community mentor, and that was so beneficial to me. I picked somebody that really she is an HR partner at McKinsey in London, and she was instrumental in getting me to where I am now. We really worked on my essential skills, pulling out the terminology, ensuring I had all the buzzwords, all of the information. And we were using LinkedIn to look for roles. That's something I'd never done before. And up popped my original People in OD admin role. And I said, that job, that's what I want to do. And she was like, okay, great. Like, we had a plan. And so I was successful in getting that job in January. And then in April 2023, I had an interview for to moving up a grade. So yeah, after 3 months, I had a promotion, which was amazing. So yeah, and I think just knowing that my confidence was boosted by, having had my Making Work Work colleagues and everybody behind me, and having my mentor, meant that, to change careers, totally change careers, age 40, with 2 small children, having been redundant, and with all of that sort of confidence busting stuff, to end up with a new role at that age was amazing. So yeah, I was really proud of myself. And then where we are now, so yeah, the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, I think everybody knows it as the garden in Edinburgh, just the botanics, but we're actually, a 350-year-old institution. We're really historical. We're one of the top botanic gardens in the world. We actually have 4 sites across Scotland. So we have our garden here in Edinburgh. We have 2 over in the west coast. We've got Logan, which is down near Stranraer, and we've got Benmore and Argyll, and we also have Doik down near Stobo in the Borders. And we have over 300 staff across those 4 sites, and then we have the same number of volunteers who work alongside us, obviously giving up their time for free. So we have women make up 59% of our staff at the moment, which is amazing. We just did those calculations a little while ago for our International Women's Day post on all of our socials, and 3 out of our 5 directors are also women. And so we're really trying to make sort of positive steps in our equality, diversity and inclusion policy. So we have a neurodiversity network, we have a menopause cafe, we have an LGBTQI plus network, we have an Athena Swan accreditation, and my current team at the moment is made up of 1 man and 4 women, and none of us work a 5-day full-time week, not one of us. So I do 27 hours over 3.5 days. My colleague, who's also an assistant pod partner, she does 28 hours over 5 days. She only works school hours. So, like that is that unicorn job that lots of people are looking for. We have that in our organisation. And this trend of, these multiple roles all fitting together to make up is repeated across the organisation. So I think that when people think about the garden, they just think about the people that work in the garden, but we have this huge staff, and you can see there on my slide. So we've got, hort, science, admin, estates, retail, customer service, events, education, community engagement, and the arts. So we've got so many things going on, and there's so many different opportunities to come and join the organisation in so many different ways. So, So in terms of what flexible working options are available, so currently, because I put most of them into our people system, we have over 160 working patterns at the moment for 300 odd staff. So and most of them are unique to one person. So there is nobody else in my organisation that does my working pattern. There is no other person in horticulture that does the working pattern that somebody in Benmore does, because she has a child and there's not a childcare in that particular place. So 160 working patterns, and nearly all of them are unique. So of 40, so since like last March-ish, we've advertised sort of 40 permanent or fixed term roles, and 40% of them were advertised as part-time. So we quite often, even roles that you think, oh, that would be a full-time role. No, because we're funded by the Scottish Government, we're on a budget, we quite often have these part-time positions. Nearly all of them have hybrid working where possible. And we also have these freelance opportunities. We advertise these through the Scottish Government portal, the procurement portal, and then we have these different other things you can see on the slides. We've got traineeships, apprenticeships. We do job share, so where we have 2 part-time people making up 1 full-time role. We have seasonal roles, so that just run through the summer, sort of for our visitor welcome team. We also have, some of our roles have annualised hours. They tend to be the visitor welcome ones with shorter hours in the winter because of the light and the gardens open less, and then longer hours in summer, but that means that people can either start earlier or finish earlier. The horticultural roles is a bit of a work in progress. Like, they tend to be more traditional, with less flexible working, but that's something that we're really trying to kind of bring into the 21st century. They do currently start earlier, so they finish early, so that that's a positive there. So yeah, those are all the things, and because we're in pod, we deal with most of them, so we know all about them. So yeah, so how are we making these options work? So I think, so we're making it work by, we're honest and open and understanding that people are adults and they have chosen a job with the number of hours that works for them, and trusting that they know how to manage that. I think, like, realistically, I'm not your mum. Like, line managers aren't your mum. So if you choose a job that has 25 hours a week, you are working those 25 hours, and you are going to manage that effectively in order to do the most that you can in those hours, leaving you free to live your life kind of outside of that. So we have lots of different ways to monitor progress. It's not about your manager standing over your shoulder looking at what you're doing. So much of our work is sort of either done in labs, or it's done in the field, or it's done in offices and with people working remotely. So we monitor progress through lots of different channels. We have timesheets that people can update their progress. We have catch-ups, we do one-to-ones, all of those different ways for managers to ensure that they are keeping on top of their staff's progress, but without in a micromanaging way. I think it's always a bit of a balance about what works for the team and what works for the individuals. So I think we are always really open. As a team, pod are the first point of contact for anybody looking to apply for a job, and we're really open to discussing what options are available. If you see a job that you like, send us an email, have a chat. We can get in touch with the line manager if anybody wants. We make sure that our line managers are prepared if in an interview situation and you say, what are the flexible working options, that they're prepared to talk through that. We quite often advertise that roles are full-time, but you might see a disclaimer that, part-time hours for the right candidate might be available. We don't dictate anymore what working time should be. We only say, what your contracted hours are. Just all of these things that, we're helping to make it. We've just undertaken a flexible working survey. So we're hoping that will start to shape some of that, the horticulture and the visitor welcome team that do need to be on site all the time, making that a bit more flexible. And yeah, we find that flexible working is really beneficial to us because people are whole people. Like, they have a life outside of work, and giving that freedom and flexibility to work in a way that works for them means that they really give their best. They work hard, they work smart, and they do everything they can to work at their best ability for us while they're here. And then when they leave, they have that freedom, and they give them space and time to focus on other things. Perhaps that is caring responsibilities, disabilities, other passions and focuses. I think that's really, really important. So yeah, that's that one. And then, so one of the questions what are we looking for when we're looking to recruit staff? And I think we have a mission, which is to explore, conserve and explain the world of plants for a better future. So we want people who are really focused on that and help us to achieve that. But we have so many different roles that you can enter the business in any kind of way. But we're looking for people that, really want to work for us specifically. We ask for a cover letter, and we ask for people to apply. And so in that, it's really that opportunity to explain why the garden's important and why they want to work with us specifically. And I think me telling you all about the flexible working options today, that is another reason that you'd want to work here, because we are open to new ways of working, and we're looking for people to give their all in order that we give them, that flexible working options back. So I think, so for women returners, and obviously just anybody that's looking to sort of make a career change, we do have obviously some roles that are very specialised and require a PhD and lots of experience, and being able to speak Arabic so that you can work in the Middle East. And those are, those roles are very specific. But for a lot of our roles, we're looking just for the transferable skills, and they might be gained in an organisation that is very, very different to the garden. But I think if you are applying and a line manager can see that you have linked those roles and the skills that you've gained in a different organisation, how you can link them to ours, I think it really helps them see why you might be a good fit. Like, obviously I pivoted myself from retail into HR and show my transferable skills. We have a new assistant events manager. She used to be a doctor. It's that fast pace. It's that like under pressure, like making sure that things run up to schedule. So again, they might seem like very different things, but they seem to work. We also have some volunteering opportunities, and people can come in and do that, and that helps get your name known. We also do education courses. We have short courses for just interest and pleasure, but we also do degree courses, and that's something that perhaps if you were looking to make a change, once you are in with the organisation and the staff start to know you, we do have lots of internal opportunities as well. So that's quite exciting. And then my last little slide. So Lynn and Leslie asked for some tips for women returners, and it's not just really women returners, but anybody that's perhaps been out of work. And I think as a women returner myself, it was making sure that you remember your worth. Like, don't sell yourself short just because you've been out of the game for a little while. I think your skills don't magically just disappear because you've been out of work for a while. Like, they're still there. They might be a little bit rusty, but you deserve to apply for that job if you think that you have the skills that are required. Before I got the job that I have now, I had an on-the-spot interview for a retail supervisor job, and I was like, oh my goodness. But as I started to talk, all those things came back, and I was like, I haven't lost that information. Like, it's still there. And that was a little job that got me back into working that after 2.5 years. And I moved on afterwards to the garden, but it was one of these things that I thought, yeah, I've got the confidence. I know that, these things are still in there. It was a bit of a triumph. So yeah, it was a good boost. And then I think using the networks that are available to you. So obviously, if you're taking part in Making Work, using that network, all of the alumni are still there. I'm still on the Teams channel, and I still check it when things pop up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So feel free to get in touch. And I think any of the alumni will tell you the same. Like, we have been through the programme, and if we're now into work, that we are desperate to bring other people to where we are. We're, working for flexible employers, and we will give any information that we can. I think using LinkedIn is amazing. People, ask to be friends. That's not the phrase, and I just say, yes, go for it. Yeah, click, go for it. And definitely the Flexible Working Scotland Facebook. Like, I am always on there. I think I've got my top contributor badge because I'm forever on it. But anything that just comes up, like, all these jobs are here to help you find something that can work with your circumstances. And like, we're all cheerleaders. Like, if you think, oh, I'm a bit down, I've not done an application or didn't get that job, like, come and talk about it, because we're all here we're your little cheerleaders behind you. And I think, finally, seeing as I'm at 50 minutes, apologies, Lynn. My approach in life is just to say yes. Like, obviously I like to talk, but talking to a screen is a bit out of my comfort zone. But I was just like, yeah, I'm proud of where I work. I want to tell people about that. So I was like, yeah, of course I'll do it. I think putting myself forward for opportunities, never really knowing where they might lead, nowhere, somewhere, like a new job, that's exciting. I think when you're looking for a job, sometimes it can feel like, maybe a 3-month temp role. Like, it's a lot of effort to, get back into work, but that could lead to something bigger. So I think yeah, there's definite opportunities, and it can be quite daunting, but the opportunities are out there. Like, I'm evidence of that. Andrew will show you evidence of that. We're all behind you. We're here to help. So yeah, that's me. Sorry that went on for a long time.
Thanks, Alice. No, that was super interesting, and I'm amazed at over 160 working patterns. That's incredible. So they are out there, and they're not unicorns, everybody. So they do exist. And Alice, if you are happy for people to contact you, maybe you could put your I don't know, your LinkedIn or your email, whatever works for you, in the chat.
I will, not a problem.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Andrew now, and then after Andrew has spoken, we'll stop the recording and open up for questions. Over to you, Andrew.
Brilliant, thank you, Alice. Well done. Not just on your story, but your presentation. That I kind of come across a bit like Andy Murray. So to follow on that is just going to make me look even worse than normal. So there we go. But I think before I sort of go into some of the questions that Lynn had sort of suggested I speak about, just really to say a lot of the themes that you were speaking about, Alice, were very similar. That we're very different. That if I understood you're a kind of government funded, that if Botanics is a charity, or exactly what the structure is. The business that my wife and I own is called Home Instead. We're a small business of which there are tens of thousands in the UK, in Scotland and Edinburgh. But a lot of what you were saying was very similar in terms of people looking for staff that are that their values are consistent with the business's own values, that their skills are there. And I think I'll maybe downplay what I talk about on that front, and maybe sort of talk a bit more about the kind of employer's sort of perspective on things, because news alert, I am not and never likely to be a women returner to work. But I work in a sector. Home Instead works in the care sector, providing home care for older folks in their own homes, just trying to make their lives as best as they possibly can in the latter years of life. And it is heavily reliant on people like yourselves that are ladies. It doesn't have to be that way, but it seems to be that way. We've got a lot of great men that work with us, but we are in the minority. That's a fact. In terms of the flexible working, the kind of care sector is a funny sector in that it's interesting what Alice was saying about you offer lots of flexibility, but a bit less with the people that look after the plants. That's maybe similar to us, that we do look after people's plants in an indirect way, but our clients are the elderly people, and it does mean that we have to be realistic about the flexibility that we can offer to some of our staff. So we have about 130 people on our payroll. Roughly 10% work in the office, where we offer people a 4-day working week. And what for us that looks like is that they get 100% of pay for 80% of time for 100% of productivity. So we don't ask people to work compressed hours. I'm not somebody that spends a huge amount of time analysing stuff. I heard people like Lynn and other people talking about it, and I thought that sounds like a good idea intuitively. I worked in an environment in financial services where burnout was a big factor. We have a lot of older people that work with us, and I listen to the kind of stories of the kind of carnage in the care sector through the COVID period, and I believe a big factor in us not experiencing some of that was around the flexible working that we offer our office teams, just to get that kind of work-life balance and a day a week just to completely decompress. But also thinking about the caregiving side of things, where we very roughly we offer two types of contract. One is where people come to us and they tell us when they want to work, and we work with their availability. It is a 0-hour contract. There's a lot of negativity around 0-hour contracts. Interestingly, whenever we offer our staff contracted hours, but require them to work within the availability that we require for our peak demand, they're not interested in switching. So that the 0-hour contracts work well. The way that we kind of get the right balance there is we ask our clients to give us 2 weeks notice for making any changes. So they pay and our staff get paid if that changes over that sort of short period. So it's not perhaps the type of 0-hour contract that you might find in retail, Alice, where maybe, if things are a bit quiet on a Friday afternoon, it's like, sorry, Andrew, you can go home now. And it's like, wow, that's a bit brutal. So that's kind of how the flexible working for us works. When we're looking to recruit people, we're very much a values-led business. If you come onto the business, there are bits of paper on the wall that talk about our values, our mission, all that sort of stuff. As much as anything, there's my moral compass to make sure that we're doing something about all of that stuff. And if people come in and read that and think that was the previous sort of tenant in this office, then we've got that badly wrong. So we are looking for those values. We're looking for reliability. We're looking for empathy. We're looking for people with a warm heart. We're looking for people that have got transferable skills. And I kind of watch, and I'm maybe not on the Facebook group as much as others, but I kind of watch on there. And sometimes I say, come on, guys, just, as I say, I've never been that returner, but, if you've been away for work for 3 years or for 10 years, raising a family, the kind of skills that you've developed through that sort of period are incredibly valuable to employers. And, whether you're running a garden centre or the botanics or a care business or a hotel or a lawyer's firm, that there is one common factor across that piece. And that is, I promise you, they're short-staffed. They're desperate for staff. So, I think in terms of, for yourselves, it's have confidence in that, sit down and understand what your skills are, what your strengths are, put those into a CV. We never ask people for a CV, and increasingly I think, people agonize over getting the perfect CV. I would just get yourself out there, get speaking to people, picking up on something that Lynn said. I'm all over the place here, guys, but anyway, hopefully something's useful. The kind of concept about looking for employers who've got awards, we tend not to look at employers' awards like we pay the living wage and more. There's absolutely no evidence from an employer's perspective that having that badge helps you recruit staff. So why would I bother with it? So controversial, a different perspective. What I absolutely would say is, listening to Alice, if I was looking for a job, and even I'm not, I'm enthused to go and look at the Botanics website to see if there's a job there, because it sounds great. And that's not because they may or may not have badges of honour that may or may not be the reality of what it is to work. The last job I had was at the Royal Bank. A toxic culture. I'm sure it had every award under the sun for HR. Absolutely toxic. And the only way that you could find that out is to speak to folks that work there. Finding out and through your formal, your informal networks, what is it actually like there, and does that fit with what you're looking for? One of the things that Lynn asked, and again, this might be a bit controversial. When do you talk about? Am I controversial? Maybe I am. When do you talk about flexible working? I don't employ many people in our business anymore. I've got a team of people that do that for us. But if I listen to what they say, if somebody throws a curveball at them at any stage in the process, after that initial stage, and that curveball isn't necessarily about flexible working, it could be anything, that doesn't feel like a positive thing. That if I would always encourage you, put yourself in the shoes of the employer, and how is it going to feel to them? Or the flip side is, if we employ somebody to work on a particular work pattern, then we say, actually, we've kind of thought about this, guys, and we'd quite like you to do this other pattern, which suits us better at this point in time. I'm not sure that you would be sitting there thinking that this feels great. So again, it's maybe not a popular one, but a different perspective on how that would work. And if you've done your research with the organisation, and you get the sense that these guys are people that are up for flexible working, you've got that match between the employer's culture, the member of staff's needs and work, that is the glue that can make it work long term. So that would be a perspective there. And I'll just finish with some tips. I think just identify what your strengths are, because if you're returning to work, I don't care what you've been doing over that period of time. I'm more interested in knowing what I do, but you're bound to have developed new skills in there. So I think, be confident and put yourself forward in that. I think also caveat that by being realistic. I'm an accountant. Maybe that's why I come across really boring. But if I went back to try and get the job that I had in accountancy 25 years ago, apart from the fact that I'm probably unemployable, having run my own businesses for 20 years, I'm not sure that I have got the professional up-to-date capacity. The organisation, the way that it works has changed so much. So I think I just have to be realistic about my entry point into that profession if I wanted to go back to it. But I think my biggest advice would be just be confident and speak to people. Try and speak to people in that business and get past the, people always say to us about our website, oh, you've got a lovely business. Home Instead's got a lovely website. Lovely website. What does that mean? What is the reality for the people that experience care from us, the people that work with us? Yeah, we drop the ball sometimes, but what is that core consistent experience for people? Because websites are easily structured to hoodwink people. Awards are relatively easy to get because not many people apply for them. I've never experienced an award where the deadline hasn't been extended because nobody's applying for it. So there we go. So a different perspective from Andy Murray.
Thanks, Andrew. I think I don't think that was boring at all. And I think one of the things that people struggle with, you were saying be confident. I think after a career break, often people struggle with their confidence. But as you say, it's through speaking to people and, processing what's been going on and talking about your transferable skills that people can often gain confidence. Because I think if people start talking about it, they'll be encouraged by their friends and family and the people in their networks, and hopefully they will start to feel a bit more confident. There's nothing that undermines confidence further, particularly for the women returners I work with, than sitting at home procrastinating because they want some kind of perfection and perfect CV or a perfect pitch or to perfectly understand what their skills are before doing anything. And I think actually I think
as Alice
process.
said, I think if I picked her up, she got what sounds like a dream job just now, but there was a stepping stone there. It wasn't to perfection. It was just, I'm just going to get out the door and do something.
Exactly.
And that can help build your confidence. And actually, maybe you find out that that's your dream job rather than the thing that you thought was your dream job, because how many people actually land there first time?
Absolutely.